A monk sits almost motionless in the snow, steam rising from a wet cloth draped across his shoulders. A diver descends into blue darkness without a tank. Somewhere in a quiet laboratory, a human brain changes its rhythm when the invisible field around it turns. For most of modern history, we were taught to think of the body as a machine with fixed settings. The heart beats, the lungs breathe, the immune system reacts. The eyes see what they are built to see. Anything beyond that was placed in a softer category: folklore, spiritual discipline, coincidence, or imagination. But the story is becoming less simple. Again and again, careful research has found strange margins around human ability. Not fantasy, not limitless power. Something quieter and perhaps more interesting. Capacities that appear under pressure: training, mutation, injury, belief, or silence. The question is not whether humans are secretly supernatural. The deeper question is why the ordinary human being may still be unfinished. Before science had instruments, cultures had stories. Sailors spoke of men who could navigate without stars. Mountain people described runners who seemed to travel beyond fatigue. Monastic traditions preserved accounts of heat rising from still bodies in freezing rooms. Modern science often treated these stories as exaggerations, and often for good reason. Human memory bends. Legends grow in the retelling. A body pushed to the edge can look mysterious from a distance. Yet the dismissal created its own blind spot. If a claim sounded too strange, it was easy to reject before studying it. The laboratory became a gatekeeper, but also a narrow doorway. It measured what could be repeated, isolated, and recorded, while many human abilities appeared only in rare lives, extreme environments, or long training. That tension still shapes the subject today. A single anecdote is not proof, but a pattern across cultures, disciplines, and bodies can become a question worth asking. What if some abilities were never magic at all? What if they were biological functions we forgot how to notice? The first clue is invisible. It passes through buildings, through skin, through sleep, and through every quiet room on Earth. The planet itself is surrounded by a magnetic field, and countless animals appear to use it as a map. Birds cross continents with astonishing precision. Sea turtles return to beaches they left years earlier. Wolves and other mammals show behaviors that suggest directional sensitivity. For decades, humans seemed to be the exception, the clever animal that had lost the compass. Then, in 2019, researchers at Caltech reported something difficult to ignore. When human subjects sat inside a specially controlled chamber and the magnetic field around them was rotated, the brain sometimes responded. The subjects did not consciously feel anything. They did not say, "North is over there." But their brain waves shifted. This was not a compass needle in the mind. It was more fragile than that, more hidden. It suggested that the human nervous system may still carry an ancient sensitivity beneath awareness. If true, it raises a quiet possibility. Perhaps some instincts begin as signals too faint for language. Color seems so complete until we learn it is only a negotiation. The red apple, the blue shirt, the yellow porch light at evening, all of it depends on tiny cones in the eye, translating wavelengths into experience. Most people have 3 types of color cones. That gives us a world of roughly 1 million distinguishable colors. It sounds abundant, almost extravagant, until we meet the possibility of tetrachromacy. In some women, a genetic variation may produce a 4th type of cone. For a true functional tetrachromat, the visible world could contain distinctions most people cannot separate at all. A wall that looks plain to one person may hold subtle threads of rose, green, ash, and gold to another. The strange part is not only that some people may see more color, it is that the rest of us would never know what we were missing. Our perception feels complete because it is all we have ever had. That may be the first humbling lesson of hidden ability. Reality does not have to be absent to be unseen. Sometimes the door is there, but the body has not been built to open it. In a hospital in the Netherlands, one of biology's old assumptions began to tremble. The autonomic nervous system was supposed to run below conscious control. It managed temperature, inflammation, adrenaline, and survival chemistry without asking permission. Then came Wim Hof, a Dutch extreme athlete who sat in ice, climbed mountains in minimal clothing, and claimed that breath, cold exposure, and focused intention could influence processes most people never try to touch. Researchers at Radboud University tested him and later trained volunteers in his method. The results suggested that breathing and mental techniques could affect stress hormones and inflammatory response during an experimental immune challenge. It did not mean illness could simply be wished away. It did mean the boundary between voluntary and involuntary was less solid than expected. That is a profound shift. The body may not be a machine with sealed compartments. It may be closer to an orchestra, with some instruments usually playing beyond conscious hearing. Under rare conditions, attention may become a kind of hand reaching toward the controls. And if breath can influence inflammation, what else has been quietly listening to the mind? A blind person clicks their tongue in a quiet hallway, and the hallway answers. The echo returns from a wall, a doorway, a parked car, a tree. To most people, the sound is almost nothing. To a trained listener, it can become shape. Human echolocation is one of the clearest examples of the brain's quiet flexibility. Some blind individuals learn to use sharp mouth clicks or cane taps to detect objects in space. Research has shown that the visual cortex, the region we associate with sight, can become involved in processing these echoes. That detail changes the story. The brain is not simply a set of fixed departments. It is a living network, willing under pressure to repurpose territory. The part that once interpreted light can learn to interpret sound. Vision, in this sense, may not belong only to the eyes. It may belong to the brain's hunger for structure. There is something deeply human in this adaptation. Loss does not only close doors. Sometimes it reveals corridors that were always there. And once we see the brain reorganize itself so dramatically, another question appears. Could other hidden capacities emerge not from adding something new, but from removing an old limitation? Sometimes transformation begins with injury. A person falls, suffers a blow to the head, survives, and then discovers something strange waiting in the aftermath. Music, numbers, patterns, calendars, geometry. Cases of acquired savant abilities are rare, and they should be approached carefully. They do not show that genius is sitting fully formed inside everyone, waiting for damage to release it. Brain injury is dangerous, often devastating, and never a doorway to romanticize. Still, these cases remain difficult to ignore. They suggest that extraordinary pattern recognition may sometimes emerge when ordinary systems of filtering, inhibition, or attention are disrupted. The brain, in protecting us from too much information, may also hide certain forms of perception. This is the midpoint of the story, where the old question changes. Maybe hidden human abilities are not always powers we lack. Maybe they are powers we normally suppress in order to function. A mind that noticed every pattern, every sound, every sensation, every color shift might not be free. It might be overwhelmed. The gift may also be a burden. The filter may be not a prison, but a mercy. Yet if filters can shift, who decides what we are allowed to perceive? A machine produces numbers in a quiet room. It is designed to be random, indifferent, free of human desire. Then researchers ask a strange question. Can collective attention, emotion, or intention leave even the faintest trace on randomness? The Global Consciousness Project, associated with work that grew from Princeton research, has explored whether random number generators show unusual patterns during major world events. Supporters have pointed to moments of shared human attention and suggested that consciousness may be more interconnected than standard models allow. The evidence remains debated. Many scientists remain unconvinced. Statistical interpretation is difficult, and the human mind is skilled at finding meaning after the fact. But even controversy can be revealing. The very existence of the question tells us something about our age. We can measure brain waves, magnetic fields, hormones, and probability streams, yet consciousness still resists complete explanation. We know it from the inside, but cannot fully hold it from the outside. If the individual mind is already mysterious, the collective mind is more mysterious still. Whether or not machines can register human intention, the human body certainly can. A crowd can raise fear, courage, grief, or hope in a single person before a word is spoken. Perhaps the next hidden ability is not in isolation, but in connection. A patient receives a pill with no active drug, and the body responds as though medicine has arrived. Pain eases, symptoms shift, chemistry changes. For generations, the placebo effect was treated almost like an embarrassment, a nuisance that interfered with clean measurement. But the placebo response is not nothing. It is the body doing something. Studies have shown that expectation can activate real biological pathways, including the release of natural opioids involved in pain relief. In some cases, the brain appears to participate in manufacturing the very experience a person believes is coming from outside. This does not mean belief cures everything. It does not make suffering imaginary. The danger is to turn a real phenomenon into a simplistic slogan. The deeper truth is more careful and more moving. Meaning can alter biology. A white pill, a doctor's confidence, a ritual of care, even the feeling of being witnessed can become part of the treatment environment. The body responds not only to molecules, but to context. That leaves us with a delicate mystery. If belief can help summon chemistry, then what are worry, loneliness, and fear summoning every day without our consent? In the canyons of northern Mexico, running is not only exercise. Among the Tarahumara, or Raramuri, long-distance movement has been woven into culture, survival, celebration, and identity. Stories about their endurance have sometimes been exaggerated, as stories of human extremes often are. But the documented reality is still remarkable. Raramuri runners have covered immense distances over rugged terrain, often in simple sandals, guided by rhythm, community, and tradition rather than modern sports science. Their example complicates the way industrial life thinks about limits. Many people are taught to see the body as fragile, requiring constant comfort and rescue. Yet human evolution was shaped by walking, running, heat regulation, persistence, and social cooperation. Hyperendurance is not only a matter of stronger legs. It is a relationship between metabolism, culture, terrain, pacing, and the mind's interpretation of fatigue. The body may stop not because it is empty, but because the brain predicts danger and pulls back. That prediction can be wise. It can also be conservative. The Raramuri remind us that ability is never only inside the individual. It is also carried by landscape, story, practice, and the people running beside us. So where does the body end and the environment begin? A person enters a room and feels something before they can explain it. The conversation is polite. The light is ordinary. Nothing visible has happened. Yet the stomach tightens, the pulse changes, and some older intelligence begins to whisper caution. The gut is sometimes called a second brain, not as a metaphor only, but because it contains a vast nervous system of its own. Roughly 100 million neurons help regulate digestion, immunity, chemical signaling, and communication with the brain. This does not mean the gut predicts the future. It does mean the body is constantly reading the world before conscious thought catches up. Facial expressions, tone, smell, posture, memory, and threat cues may be processed beneath awareness, producing what we later call intuition. A gut feeling can be wrong. It can be shaped by fear, bias, trauma, or habit. But it can also be a rapid calculation from data the conscious mind has not yet assembled. The wisdom is not to obey every instinct blindly. It is to listen without surrendering judgment. Hidden human ability may be less like a sudden power and more like a conversation between systems we rarely introduce to one another. And one of the oldest voices in that conversation lives below the ribs. Deep inside the brain, the pineal gland is small enough to be forgotten and symbolic enough to attract centuries of speculation. Philosophers, mystics, and scientists have all projected meaning onto it, sometimes carefully, sometimes too eagerly. One reason it fascinates people is its association with altered states and the molecule DMT, sometimes called the spirit molecule in popular culture. Research has found that mammals can produce DMT in the body, and some studies suggest the brain may be capable of producing it as well. Claims about large releases during birth, death, or deep meditation remain uncertain and difficult to prove. This is where caution matters. The mystery of consciousness does not need exaggeration to be profound. Dreams, near-death experiences, meditation, anesthesia, grief, and awe already show that the mind can generate worlds from within. The brain is not simply a receiver of reality. It is also an artist, a chemist, and a storyteller. Whether DMT plays a central role in extreme states remains unresolved. But the question points towards something larger. The borders of ordinary consciousness are not as permanent as they feel. Every night, without permission, the brain creates impossible landscapes and asks us to live inside them. What other inner worlds remain unopened while we are awake? Taken one by one, these abilities seem scattered. A magnetic sensitivity, a fourth cone, controlled inflammation, echo-based perception, sudden pattern genius, collective attention, placebo chemistry, endurance, gut intelligence, altered consciousness. Together, they suggest a quieter pattern. The human being is not a finished object. We are a living negotiation between ancient biology and present awareness. Some capacities are rare because they require genes most people do not have. Some are trainable because discipline reshapes the nervous system. Some emerge only after loss, stress, belief, or unusual experience. Some remain speculative, waiting for better tools and more careful questions. That distinction matters. Wonder becomes stronger when it is honest. To say the body has hidden abilities is not to say it has no limits. Limits are real. The cold can kill. Injury can destroy. Belief can fail. Perception can deceive. But within those limits, the range of human possibility may be wider than the modern world usually teaches. Maybe we became too accustomed to measuring ourselves in averages. Average vision, average endurance, average attention, average reaction. Yet humanity has always been shaped by outliers who reveal the edges of the map. The edge is not fantasy. It is where science often begins. Return to the monk in the snow, the diver in the blue silence, the runner moving through canyon dust, the blind listener reading a room through echoes, the patient whose belief changes chemistry. None of them makes the human body limitless. In some ways, they make it more fragile, more mysterious, and more worthy of respect. They show that the boundary between mind and body is not a wall. It is a shoreline, changing with pressure, attention, training, memory, and meaning. The central question has not disappeared. What are we capable of that we have not yet learned to recognize? Science will not answer that question by accepting every claim. It will answer by looking more carefully, measuring more patiently, and allowing mystery to be a beginning rather than a failure. The unknown is not an enemy of truth. It is the place where truth has not fully arrived. Perhaps the most hidden human ability is not magnetism, color, endurance, or intuition. It is our capacity to keep discovering ourselves after we thought the story was settled. The body remembers more than we know. The mind reaches farther than it admits. And somewhere between evidence and wonder, the human future is still listening.